Good afternoon, Amsterdam. How's it going, guys? Wow, it's a thrill. It's a thrill to be back at the Next Web. It's, I think, my third time speaking here, and it's an honor because Amsterdam is my home, a city that I love. So to be back in this incredible festival of technology and creativity is really a thrill. And it's a chance really to showcase how my work has evolved in the last couple of years. I've spent over a decade lecturing people about exponential technologies, the future of artificial intelligence, the nature of what it means to be human as the coevolution of humans and technology transcends what Stephen Johnson calls our adjacent possible, which is like a shadow from the future that hovers over the present and provides a map of all the ways in which the present can reinvent itself. So I've been, in a way, a hype man for exponential technologies. I've always said that technologies don't just make us more efficient, they don't just make our businesses more profitable. They are tools of disruption, but they are tools that more than anything else disrupt our limiting beliefs and create new spaces for, I think, self-expression and creativity and imagination. I believe at its best, these technologies represent the human mind turned inside out and the literalization of human imagination in the world. And I'm really excited because after spending a decade basically being a hype man of the future, I feel like the future has arrived. Artificial intelligence has given all of us tools that I believe can allow us to share our imagination and transform our self-expression as never before. As the futurist Kevin Kelly, who wrote What Technology Wants and who spoke here at the Next Web, has said, imagine how impoverished the world would be if we didn't invent the technology of the musical instrument in time for Beethoven, or how impoverished we would all be if we didn't invent the technology of the oil painting in time for Van Gogh. And by that same note, these new AI tools in the context of creativity, tools like Midjourney, tools like Runway, tools like ChatGPT, are allowing us increasingly, I think, to tell stories about the human soul. Now, you'll notice that the name of my talk is Solving Your Bored Out with Psychedelics, exploring AI, exploring the future. And that's because I believe that human flourishing is a critical space that I think needs to be addressed in an age of exponential technologies. Because even though we have these incredible tools that are creating incredible possibilities for human beings, people are still suffering from burnout, from bored out, mental health crises, depression, anxiety, suicidality. And so as somebody who cares a lot about human flourishing, I'm interested in disruptive interventions. Psychedelics are potentially a disruptive intervention, but so is psychedelic storytelling. Storytelling that helps us literalize and visualize the inner logic of our mental life. And that's the inspiration for a new series of films that I've been creating with my creative partner, Brad Nessick. And so this session is going to be a show and tell of 3 films created entirely with AI. They're very short, just a couple minutes each. And the first one imagines if our mental health intervention treatment was utterly transformed. It uses the tools of satire and surrealism to both critique the contemporary mental health industry and also provide a way that is more imaginative, humorous, and a little bit Dadaist in terms of the kind of healing that we really need. It's called the Psychedelic Puppet Show, and we'll start with the first film and see what you think. Before we begin, I'll tell you that the central character in the film is diagnosed with something called self-curtailment disorder, which I think we all have, which is the disorder of being so forced into a narrow band of reality that the part of us that wants to sing and dance and do somersaults is often really repressed unless we're at a festival or something. So if we could please show the first film in the back, please.
Confidential Psychiatric Report. Patient, Edgar. Institution, the Council of Psychedelic Puppets. Bureau of Impulse Liberation. The patient presented with classic symptoms of self-curtailment disorder, a condition marked by solar plexus contractions, chronic anticipation of punishment, and a compulsive need to stay in line. Patient had internalized all major protocols of industrial obedience, clock worship, soullessness, and anxious hesitancy. Somersaulting impulses had been fully repressed. Urgent treatment was required. Intervention 1. Patient was escorted via space elevator into orbit and launched down a padded slip and slide from the stratosphere. Screaming turned to laughing by kilometer 7. Solar plexus spasms ceased. At sea level, he cried for 10 minutes, then performed an unsolicited cartwheel. Intervention 2. A multi-dimensional human slingshot device was employed. Edgar, in a chromatic leotard, was catapulted through a freshly stabilized stargate into hyperspace. He collided symbolically with Jungian archetypes, Freud's talking couch, and a slow-motion butterfly. Edgar turned to it and said, "You again." Witnesses reported a visible aura of reintegration. Final outcome: subject reconnected with the thrill of the slip and slide and the rush of ecstatic motion. Nervous system realigned with primordial play. Laughter reinstated. Compliance circuitry overwritten. Patient was discharged. Status: cured via absurdity. Filed by the Council of Psychedelic Puppets.
So that... Oh, thank you. Thank you. So as you can probably tell, it's sort of like partly taking the piss, like we're sort of having a laugh, but we're also critiquing. You know, people have sometimes psychedelic experiences in which they heal some part of themselves, they connect with their childhood, they experience the overview effect, they feel like their soul went into orbit, and then they struggle in trying to put this into ordinary language. And so my invitation is, why put it into ordinary language? Like, why not stretch the scope of how we can express ourselves and express our soul, right? Our soul has its own internal logic, and like NDSM, you know, we're in a hotbed of creative self-expression right now. And so my invitation is that these tools should be used to push the envelopes of how we can express ourselves in all of our glory and all of our absurdity. Now, the next film is going to take the same character, Edgar. After he's been cured, he goes back to the default world, right? And unfortunately, the powers that be force him back into compliance. And so he's going to need a more intense intervention. And this time he's going to be sent to Burning Man. Another place that's really hard to map in the literal grid. Everybody's like, but the miracles that happened there, I met my soulmate, I saw the meaning of life, I realized what my burnout was all about, I was born again. How do you map that in a way that lands? And I think these tools finally allowing us to do so. So let's watch the second film, please.
Confidential Psychiatric Report. Patient, Edgar. Bureau of Impulse Liberation. Session notes. Emergency intervention. Following an extended period of relative alignment, patient Edgar has relapsed. Symptoms presented include solar plexus twitching, low-grade dread, time anxiety, and unsolicited weeping while folding laundry. The patient has reabsorbed cultural constructs with tragically little resistance and was spending his days doom-scrolling on Twitter while suffering from chronic insomnia. The pathology has grown insidious. Emergency intervention required. Enter Operation Burning Man, a convulsive electroshock therapy of the soul. Wearing nothing but a tutu and some glitter, patient was helicopter dropped into the mythic navel of Nevada's Black Rock Desert, an interdimensional threshold where ontology goes topless and logic burns in effigy. For 7 days, Edgar's egoic crust was exfoliated by wind, dust, nudity, and 3 a.m. techno-dirges. He adopted the playa name Moisturizer, donned a neon monk robe, and began co-constructing a 50-foot shrine to lost dreams. One morning, while urinating near a sentient trash panda installation, he had an unsolicited sobbing breakthrough. The puppets observed from the shadows, satisfied. The playa operated as a mythopoetic surgery theatre of the absurd, each art piece a sacred scalpel. Edgar danced under a 40-foot animatronic owl that whispered his childhood fears in Esperanto. He was baptized in a misting dome named the Womb of Unknowing. He climbed a spiral tower of kitchen timers, each ringing at random, until temporal logic collapsed and he cried out, "Time is a hoax." Key encounters included a giant seesaw operated by philosophers and strange psychedelic puppets, a phone booth that only connected to his ex-girlfriend's subconscious, an inflatable cathedral shaped like Freud's head, where worship was conducted via interpretive dance. By day 5, Edgar was giggling without cause. By day 6, he had married a cactus in a ceremony officiated by a puppet bishop named Pastor Whoops. By day 7, he had become light. Concluding notes: Burning Man functions as a liturgical deprogramming ritual. It is a demolition derby of internalized norms. It weaponizes absurdity, aesthetic overwhelm, and mythic theatre to perform radical exorcism of the default world. It is not a vacation. It is sacred psychocomedy. It violates expectation with devotional glee until psychic elasticity is restored. Recommended ongoing treatment. Weekly ecstatic dance. Quarterly exposure to liminal zones. Carnivals, surrealist film festivals, bathhouses of ambiguity. Status: patient re-enchanted, for now.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, so we're definitely going to keep revisiting this character. He's going to have a series of mental health crises, and then the puppets will develop a series of treatments. Now, I have one more film to show you. This one's a little bit different. This one is a reimagining of Bob Dylan's creative process. Now, as you guys know, Bob Dylan is a visionary songwriter. Recently, there was an incredible film done about his life. And I wondered, he's been asked for the longest time, where do those lyrics come from? Where do you get your ideas? What do you tap into? How do we show the subconscious realms that you pay visitation to when you channel the way you do? And so we thought, well, you know what? Maybe we re-envision his whole creative process. Maybe he goes to the realm of the psychedelic puppets. Let's bring it to life. And this one I actually did the voiceover for. The previous ones, as you noticed, was this British philosopher that sounds a lot like David Attenborough, and that's on purpose. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the very last film.
It's 1965. Outside Dylan's apartment, the world clamors. Journalists swarm the stoop like gnats, microphones thrust forward, asking the same hollow questions. What does it mean to be the voice of a generation? Is folk music dead? Do you believe in protest? Are you the new prophet? Inside, Dylan slouches at the edge of a busted couch, hungover on language. The guitars lean in the corner like tired saints. Nothing comes, no words, no melody, just the static hum of expectations. He lights a cigarette, the smoke curls strange. The radiator wheezes a Bessie Smith tune. The wallpaper blisters and peels back, revealing an embroidered velvet curtain. A fabric-sequenced hand yanks it open. A trapdoor unfurls beneath him, and Dylan falls into a cabaret outside the mind. This is Desolation Row, a subconscious speakeasy stitched from archetype and nonsense, where Dada is scripture. The bar pulses with impossible configurations. Medusa tenders drinks to Rapunzel. Joan of Arc slow dances with a traffic cone. Freud rides a carousel horse in circles, weeping into a blind saxophone. Oracle, a sock puppet with broken compass eyes, deals tarot cards from a Ouija board. Dylan is handed a card, the Fool reversed. He follows a path of shoes without feet through kaleidoscopic vignettes. Cain reciting beat poetry to Abel. Cinderella in a riot helmet. Nero turning his violin as Rome burns in reverse. Here, language isn't used to explain. It's used to implicate. Symbols recombine endlessly. Time bends like a steel string. Absurdity crashes through the brittle scaffolding of rationality like the Dadaists before, assaulting the tired architecture of default reality. It dissolves the stale binaries and barbed logic that box the world in pain. In its place, it unleashes a flood of symbols, metaphors, juxtapositions, unbound by time or coherence. Absurdity is not nonsense, it's the syntax of the sublime. The puppets speak this language fluently. In their world, everything can mean everything else. This is how an artist remembers what has never been, through ecstatic contradiction, through myth, dream, and the sacred glitch. Dylan returns to himself sometime before dawn, alone in his apartment. Same cigarette, same guitar, but now his fingers move with clarity. He channels what he saw, not literally, but through poetic distortion. He writes Desolation Row like he's remembering something older than words. He isn't the voice of a generation, he is a pilgrim, a vagabond, an ahistorical minstrel. The puppets were his guides. Desolation Row, absurd, sacred, and utterly real as fiction is real, is where the artist returns to be free.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your attention, and I want to also thank my collaborator on this project, Brad Nessick, brilliant artist. And we're having a blast, and if you want to join us on this adventure, reach out to me. Thank you so much, guys. Cheers.
Jason Silva.